This 1970 Dodge Challenger convertible is a very rare car. It's one of only 5 Panther Pink RT convertibles in North America, and likely the only one delivered to Canada. So it's a very unique car, but the journey that this car has been on is also a pretty amazing story. First off, I'd like to say that the credit for the research of the history of this car really belongs to Pat Kanuga, the current owner who, along with his business partner Dan Rasmussen, have restored the car. Pat's a very well-known Mopar guy. He's owned several noteworthy Mopars, including 5 '69 Dodge Chargers, 2 '70 Challengers prior to this one, and a 446 barrel Superbird, just to name a few. He's got an excellent Mopar resume. So let's start at the beginning. 1970 was the first year for the new Challenger, and it was also the first year for FM3 Panther Pink, or Moulin Rouge as was known for Plymouth. This color was introduced by Mopar in a bulletin dated January 28, 1970, along with FJ6 Green Go, and these are designated as spring colors. Roger Johnson, who was the new car salesman for Penner Dodge, ordered the car because of the Pink Panther movies. He was going to paint a giant Pink Panther in the dealership window, and that would go along with the car sitting on the dealership floor. So Roger ordered the car. It was scheduled to be built April 28th, and after arriving, no doubt did spend time on the showroom floor. But after a little while, it was given to the dealership finance manager, Ed Funk, who drove it as his dealership demo in the summer of 1970. During that summer, he proposed to his fiancée in that car, and this car also served as a parade car for Miss Centennial Manitoba. Now keep those in mind, because we're going to come back to them later on. So now we come to the fall of 1970, and the car ended up being sold to Tom Cooper, its first registered owner. But as a condition of the sale, he wanted the car painted orange. He wasn't going to drive a pink car. So this Challenger stayed in its original color for less than 6 months. And that unfortunately was the fate of a lot of pink cars. It was different, but too different for a lot of people. Now, whether Tom drove the car much or not is debatable, but it is known that he turned it into a show car. It was entered into the 1979 World of Wheels, and now, besides its orange paint, it had a red velour interior and a lot of chrome. The car got changed up again in 1980 or 81. The car was now painted black cherry with a beige leather interior. And that's the way the car looked in 1988 when Pat first saw the car. And he wasn't impressed. In his own words, "This is the ugliest Dodge Challenger I've ever seen." Now, at that point, he knew it was an RT convertible, which is rare just by itself, but he didn't know that it was an FM3 pink car. So the car ended up getting one more color change in 1990. The car was painted yellow, along with a lot of other parts on the car, including the motor. But that ended up being the end of its show car time. Tom sold the car in 1992 to a body shop owner who was going to restore the car. But after getting started, the car ended up being kind of pushed in the corner, and it sat for the next 27 years, up until Pat and Dan purchased it in 2019. By this time, it was known that it was a Panther Pink RT convertible. So you might think that's the end of it, but it's not. It's not the end of the story. Let's go forward now to 2021. A friend of Tom Cooper, who had unfortunately passed away by this time, heard that Pat had purchased the Challenger and wanted to come see the car. Now, while he was there, he told Pat about a storage shed that Tom used to rent, and he even remembered approximately where it was. So Pat pulled out his phone, and using Google Earth, they actually were able to nail down the location. Pat didn't follow up this lead right away, but after a second person told him about the shed, he decided to. So Pat made the trip, and after telling the owner why he was there, the owner not only remembered Tom, but he walked over to a pile of scrap metal and started pulling out Challenger parts. The very first thing that came out were the chromed sport hood scoops with remnants of Panther pink on them. There were quite a few different parts there, and even some of the old original plates used by Tom, and some of them were brand new. Keep in mind, this is 29 years after Tom sold the car. It's amazing that these parts survived that long and were rescued just before they would have ended up as scrap metal. So let's go back to the actual restoration of the car now. The body of this Challenger survived really well. The only metal work it appears to have received is the trunk extensions. The interior, however, was another story. There were very few pieces that were actually usable from its custom days. But Pat was able to save the original dash pad. That did require a lot of work though, because every square inch of this pad was covered in contact cement. And it took him 8 hours of work over several sessions just to remove all that contact cement. He also had to find somebody to fill in the AC vent holes that were cut in by a dealership somewhere in the 70s. Pat calls having the original restored dash pad in the car as the biggest victory of the whole car. So let's just briefly go over the car itself, some of the options it had. Now obviously the FM3 Panther Pink is the most desirable option on the car, but it is also a 335 horse 383 with the automatic. It has a rally cluster with a tach. It has power disc brakes and a power convertible top. The driver's seat is also a 6-way adjustable. One interesting thing to note is that the car did not originally come equipped with the flip-top gas cap. It originally just had the standard cap, but because the flip-top cap has been with the car for so long, Pat decided to include that on the restoration. The car itself came full circle in 2023 when the restoration was debuted at the World of Wheels. But it's not just the car that came full circle. Pat was able to contact a lot of people who were originally associated with the car in its early days. One person was Evelyn Funk, the widow of Ed Funk, the dealership finance manager who drove the car in the summer of 1970. She was able to tell Pat a lot of the early history of the car, and she got to see it in its newly restored state in 2023. Urban Rempel. He worked at Penner Dodge when this Challenger first came into the dealership. Pat enlisted his help to repaint the car in Panther Pink, and he did this at the age of 80. Sam Sanders was the mechanic for Tom Cooper in its show car days, when Sam was just 18 years of age. Pat got Sam to rebuild the motor for the restoration. One other individual is Miss Centennial Manitoba, Darlene Williams, who rode in the Challenger as a parade car in 1970. In 2023, Pat had her recreate that moment, wearing the same dress that she wore 53 years earlier. What an amazing journey it has been for the car and for so many people involved with it. Cars like this and the stories that they tell really keep this hobby interesting. Who knew that one pink Challenger could create so many enduring memories? Thank you for watching. Please keep tuning in for more Mopars and more Mopar stories. We'll see you next time.